This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel. You see the headset, you see a different look behind. On the road once again, doing some house sitting this weekend. And friends, well, the Oilers, they don't stop making news. Things don't stop swirling around as we continue this off-season push that we've had towards the NHL draft. Names have been named. Really, I don't think there's much at all in terms of interest from Oilers fans in terms of talking about potential names. I think right now we just want to see something concrete happen, something kind of translate from rumor to fact to actual new player on the team. And that's kind of where I want to update on things today. So friends, if you are new to the channel, I want you to consider right now hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. That would be greatly appreciated. Want you to stick around for more. And with that, let's get into it. Mark Spector releasing an update article today, basically going over all the things we already know and where they currently stand for us Edmonton Oilers fans. So it starts off pretty much talking about a whole bunch of comparable teams for the Oilers for what they have done so far. Goes into the Zach Hyman quote discussing kind of the winning the Stanley Cup where it's a failure of a season. And then obviously too touches on signing Evan Bouchard and Ryan McLeod. So everything continues to circulate as draft week approaches. That is not next week, but the week after. And obviously, we know that Yamamoto is likely to be a buyout candidate still. Whether that happens or not, the buyout window is already open, so the fact that it didn't happen on day one should be a clear indication. The Oilers are at least exploring options to figure out what to do more than just buy out Kailer Yamamoto, because as Mark Spector notes, there are 6 or 7 teams at the bottom of the standings that could afford the kind of role the Oilers have given him over the past few seasons and where he could contribute to. Obviously, you look at that and you probably could find a team or two that could use Kailer Yamamoto for a much reduced price in terms of what they have to give up to acquire him. So the other update too, in terms of guys on our roster, that's what I want to update first off, is guys on our roster. Guys on our roster that we have to worry about too. Warren Foegele, who has been generating interest based on his playoff performance that he put up in round 1 and round 2 against the Kings and the Golden Knights. Then you have somehow, some way, the Oilers have to obviously add a little bit something up front. And that is mentioned here by Mark Spector as having been Travis Konecny was the idea a few weeks, days ago, whatever you want to say. There is still a way to make it happen. Obviously, you could trade CC, you could trade Yamamoto, you get some salary retention, sign another defenseman, away you go. But it looks, based on what Ken Holland has said about no big swings, and 2, based on the Oilers' salary cap situation, that Travis Konecny just does not fit. I think that's something we assumed right off the start, at least I did, and I just kind of made the pitch for why I'd like it to happen still. But you know what, end of the day is it ain't going to work, so let's not worry about it, right? That's number 1 off the board. So that's where you're at. And then today, obviously, too, I think we're still talking about Brett Pesce. I don't think much has happened because we don't know much more outside of the situation with Carolina and what they're trying to do to re-sign him at current. So when it comes down to that, until something breaks in Carolina, we won't have anything break in Edmonton in terms of Brett Pesce, although even Mark Spector sitting here in his article drooling about just how great Brett Pesce would be beside Darnell Nurse. And I mean, you know what it takes for Mark Spector to get drooling about a player on the Oilers, so just keep that in mind. And again, though, the Oilers would have to clear a ton of cap space to make it happen, give up a prospect, perhaps a future first. There's a ton that has to happen there, so we don't need to worry about that yet until something breaks in Carolina that either reduces the price, bumps up the price, or does something that gives us a price for Brett Pesce. So that's what you need to know on that front. And of course, then he goes on to talk about, well, you know what, once you trade, when you trade for a known asset, even though you're giving up an unknown asset, you know what, sometimes it bites you in the butt, but you'd still rather have done it because you got the reward at the end of the line of 16 wins in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That being famously the Joe Nieuwendyk for Jarome Iginla trade. That's what he references, does Mark Spector, in his article today. Now, the other kind of update that we have to get to right now, too, right? We've covered Konechny, we've covered Pesce, but you got to also cover Jonathan Toews, who has been I mean, 2 years now, rumored to be a member of the Edmonton Oilers at some point in the near future, whether it was 2 years ago or today. And obviously, the Oilers are looking at him in a role on the fourth line, about $1 million salary, burrow him in the AHL if it doesn't work out. Good, bang, done, dusted, awesome. But there are a lot of problems with Jonathan Toews right now because his health has been here, there, and everywhere over the course of the past 6, 8 months. Secondarily, too, he's 35, 36, whatever he might be. Does he really feel like going into the gym and trying to gear up for one more Stanley Cup final? Well, that's a different question. And if the Oilers are going to sign a player for $1 million to a contract, they're not going to waste it on a guy who's going to play 30 games and be done. That's not how the cap space is being allocated this year. That's not how it needs to be allocated this year. It needs to be used perfectly this year to weaponize getting into the trade deadline with some cap accrued, and secondarily, too, guys who want to win this year, everything for the cup this year. So that's where it kind of updates is, yeah, he could help out. He'd be a fantastic addition to the Edmonton Oilers leadership core, a fantastic addition to the veteran presence in terms of cup wins and stuff. But again, just knowing that he's just, health is failing him aside, you just don't need to worry about any of that really right now. This is how serious the Oilers are taking it, all right? If you scroll down to the bottom of the article, it says Duncan Keith, the Oilers scout/advisor whose portfolio will be increased by Holland this coming season, has been put in charge of monitoring the Toews front. So Duncan Keith, who does not have a full role with the Oilers, right? Scout/advisor, so nothing assistant GM or anything. Give me a sec. You'd think I'd be able to edit that out. I can't. My apologies. But it's just, again, right? Duncan Keith is the guy in charge of signing Jonathan Toews, more or less. So to give you an update on how that looks right now, if you're about as serious as giving Duncan Keith the role, either it's really good or your chances are really, really low, and you're just kind of having Duncan Keith try to bend his ear into, hey, if you want to try and win a cup, we're the team. But at the same rate, too, that also shows how serious the Oilers are taking Jonathan Toews right now, because clearly there's nothing more to be said other than, hey, keep the buddy with him and see what happens. But it's literally just to see what happens. So, friends, that's kind of where we're sitting right now, is just Brett Pesce, Travis Konechny, Jonathan Toews, all names we have seen floated around the past few weeks. In the case of Toews, a long time. But as well, Yamamoto, Foegele continue to be kind of shopped. Whether Foegele's being shopped by the Oilers or other teams, and Yamamoto's more or less being just shopped by the Oilers, that doesn't really matter. It's just kind of a quick, clean update on what this situation's looking like going into a new week starting tomorrow on Sunday as we get things geared up for the week before the NHL draft. Friends, next weekend I'm in Arrowwood, I believe. Yes, Arrowwood is the place I'm going to for the rodeo. There's a fly on my screen. That's what that black mark was there. As you can see, it flies away. But in Arrowwood next weekend, we'll try and have some rodeo content for you from Arrowwood. Unfortunately, didn't really get much of a chance on Galician because it was raining sideways as we did the performance on Wednesday. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. I am up on out of here.